Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. Happy Wednesday. I know this call is going to be recorded and shared on social media. So if you're not happy being recorded, please exit now. We are hosting this as part of the Future Career community, where we help people grow their skills and their job search, skills and insights on how to land jobs in the US and Canada, specifically in the IT sector, but it can work for any sector as well. Today we have a great speaker, Khaled Abdelwahab. He's an IT and sales director with Nokia. He's been in the sector for almost like maybe 10, 15 more years. I can't remember, the number of years. I'll let him give a quick introduction about himself, and we're happy to have you with us, Khaled. And again, this call is mostly Q&A, engaging and supporting for the community. So don't feel shy to ask questions, raise your concerns, whatever, that is affecting your journey. We're happy to help you. Khaled will give some discussions today about mentorship and how to, influence, your job success in the workplace. So I'll let Khaled, give a quick intro and then, walk us through his talk. Go ahead, Khaled. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Excellent. Thank you for the intro, Ahmed. Hello, everyone. Happy to be here today. It's going to be a fun discussion today. So let me tell you a bit about myself, and then we go from there. My name is Khaled. I'm based in Ottawa. I work for Nokia for the past maybe 15 years. I've been in the industry for a bit more, for 17 years, different parts of the world. So I worked in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and now North America, all within Nokia. And that's maybe an interesting part of my journey, because if you look at career paths, generally speaking, I think you would find two types of people, right? People who kind of bounce around from one firm to the next, accumulating a very kind of wide range of topics and experience, and people like me who just, are with the same firm for a very long period of time. And there is no perfect answer, but I think I'm kind of the latter part, where I've been with the same firm for a long amount of time, and then I can speak to that in terms of how that has helped me in my career. We'll talk, within that context. We're going to be talking about two topics which you may think are disconnected, but I think they have a lot of overlaps. So mentorship and coaching, and then we're going to talk about power and influence, and how both of those help you within, either if you're in a firm right now and trying to grow and move up the ladder, or if you're looking for your first job, and anything in between, right? So I think all of those skills, they come in handy, whether you're applying for a job for the first time, you're mid-career, or you're a senior person within your career, right? I heard this is going to be a very engaging session, so I expect to put you on the spotlight, ask you questions. If you guys engage, and we'll have more of a conversation. It's not going to be a monologue, right, Ahmed? Keep me. So we'll have a nice discussion, and kind of bounce ideas, and I think it's going to be a two-way learning, the way I like to do these kinds of things, because we can all benefit from each other's experience. Then with that, let's maybe jump into the topic. I'll share my screen. I don't have, as mentioned to Ahmed, I don't have too many contents, so pretty light content. But just to have a visual, I think that's going to be nice. Let me share my screen, and
yeah, we can see it.
Okay, beautiful. I would like to see. Do you see the little widget here on the slide with the, or no? You see the full screen? Okay, so you don't see your
screen. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. All right, great. So let's start with the mentorship and coaching. I went to ChatGPT and asked it, hey, give me a visual for what mentorship is. And it gave me this picture, and my son was sitting next to me, and he's like, that I don't think this is appropriate because it looks religious. And I told him, no, it's not religious. It's just like, some more experienced person helping someone, go through their path. So this was ChatGPT's understanding of mentorship. Which is very, I would say it's very accurate, because if you look at the definition of mentorship, what is mentorship? It's someone who has gone down that path before you have. They have accumulated experience, knowledge, and skills that they can pass along, right? It's like someone who's going on a hike up a mountain, and they have a mentor who has gone down that same path before, and they can kind of tell you, hey, watch out, there's a ditch here, there's a rock there, you should take this route, it's faster. That's what a mentor does. They have more experience accumulated over time, and they can help you along the path. So why do we bring this into context here? Because I'm a firm believer that you should use mentorship strategically in your career. And whether it's at the start of your career when you're first applying to a job, or whether if you're like me at a current stage, at one stage I felt like I was stuck and I needed mentorship to kind of push myself to the next level and to try to grow. So the key takeaway here from mentorship is identify strategically who your mentors are and use those in your career. I've had many examples throughout my life. I'm sure it's the same for you guys. I remember, there are micro instances where you remember, hey, this mentor really helped me out. Like in my first job, when I was doing one of my first presentations, one of my early mentors, who's still a very close friend and mentor to mine, he's now a CEO of one of the companies in Middle East and Africa. He told me, hey, when you're making a presentation, take your hand out of your pocket. And there was these kind of like micro nudges along the way where this person really helped me develop into a professional. Many other examples in my life. You could think of role models, for example. I always looked up to my grandfather as kind of a figure and a mentor. The way he handled things, the way he kind of displayed himself, the way he helped people around him. So that was one of my mentors. I also very recently, as part of I just finished my MBA at Carleton University, and there I worked with a group called the Sprott Student Consulting Group, which is essentially a consulting firm within Carleton that helps local businesses grow. And the reason I joined up to that group was because the academic director was a person with decades of experience from tech and the industry. And I thought this is a great person that I would like to connect to, so that person can help me in my career. And that person has been very helpful in my career path. So that's in a nutshell what mentorship is and how you should be thinking, from my point of view, about mentorship and how you can use it and deploy it in your career. Now, what do all of these have in common, right? And here, if someone can unmute or write in the chat, so we have here a few examples, but if you can tell me what do these have in common, the common themes, what stands out? I believe these are all common characters, but if someone would like to raise their hand, speak, and pick any of these and just tell us, what do you see from this picture? And don't be shy, there's no wrong answer. So
I can chime in. I guess those are celebrities, those are famous folks that we all take as role models sometimes, and as figures who we really want to be like sometimes.
Right. So
are these
figures,
these probably superheroes in different situations? Is that something maybe?
Different situations is definitely their role models. So let's narrow this down a bit, because we often hear about mentors and we hear about coaches, right? So what's the difference between a mentor and a coach, and how can you use both a mentor and a coach strategically in your career? So if we narrow this down a bit, who from these pictures here do you think is a mentor and who do you think is a coach? And then we can kind of go down that path explaining what is a mentor, what is a coach. Any guesses? Like who here would you think is more of a mentor? Who here is more of a coach?
I guess the mentor is the X-Men person here. I can't remember his name, to be honest, but he's
Professor Xavier. I'm a superhero nerd, so you'll start to figure out a few things about my personality from the pictures here. But
yeah, and definitely the coach is the Liverpool coach here. He's really a coach. I guess that's what I think, but I could be wrong. But go ahead.
Absolutely. So, well, if we look here at Professor Xavier, he's a more experienced person. He kind of has knowledge and skills that he can pass down to the team. Same applies for Master Splinter, right? In Ninja Turtles. So he's also a mentor. He has more skills, more knowledge, and he's able kind of to tell to his students, what moral values they should have, what kind of long-term vision they should have, and what they should do down the road. But if you look at kind of the right-hand side, you see, as you mentioned, so the football, that's an archetypal coach, right? Which is more tactical. They tell you what to do. So the difference between a mentor and the coach is a mentor will tell you what to do based on their experience. A coach will rather kind of ask you probing questions so you can start to figure things out on your own. But then you have figures who could be like a mentor and a coach, like like Zainuddin Zidane. He's a senior player, so he kind of plays both roles. That he is a mentor because he's more experienced, he has more skills, he's been down that path. He climbed the mountain before, so he can tell the other players, from my experience, this is what I did. But at the same time, he can act as a coach, asking them probing questions and making sure that he's more tactical, telling them, hey, this is how you should attack from the right wing, and this is how you score, and those sorts of things, right? So the point here is that you should be very strategic in choosing your mentors in your career and your coaches in your career. And both are quite different. And some individuals might play both roles in your journey, right? So key point here is choose both, and look at both to help you either land that first job, excel when you're in mid-career, or grow when you're further along in your career. So let's again open it up here a bit. So how many of you have had a mentor or a coach, and what does that like? If someone can kind of unmute and share with us if they had a mentor or a role model kind of figure in their career, and what difference did that make? If you have any examples to share with us. And I don't see the list, but I'm very happy picking on people and calling out names to contribute. That's fine as well.
Go for it. Go for it. I guess, Khaled, we can do that too. So let's maybe ask Sadia if you're okay, if you're comfortable unmuting and maybe sharing your idea here.
Sure. I've had a mentor in the past, and like you mentioned, like their experiences and how they did things helped guide me. So like in the past when I was I wanted to go to like medical school, PA school, they like guided on what experiences to do and like anything like related to that.
Okay, beautiful. Anyone else?
Yeah, I can share my experience as well. I looked up to a lot of my family members who traveled to Middle East. When I was back in India doing my schooling, my uncle had traveled to Middle East, Saudi Arabia at the age of 19 to start his job. And when I came to US all by myself, I learned how he like struggled back then, and there was like no social media, no internet potentially, and he had to put all his time working and provide for the family. And when I had a discussion with him, he highlighted the do's and don'ts when you go far from home. So that kind of helped me in my journey as well.
That's a great example. So the uncles of the world who have gone down that path, and then instead of you kind of scratching your head trying to figure things out, you can tap into that knowledge and learn how they did things and then apply that to your own path. I think that's a great example. Thanks, Mohammed. Anyone else would like to share? Okay, so maybe also keep that in mind. I think as you kind of contemplate this, what kind of mentors have you had? What difference did they make? I'm pretty sure you're going to find many examples in your life where you had a mentor and they helped pass along some level of experience. Could be a boss or a colleague at work, could be a family member, could be a friend. It's all the same as long as they can apply their knowledge and help you along your path. I think that's a great resource to have and to hold on to be honest. I was a few months ago, I had a conference that I was contributing to in Chicago. That was in September, and it was kind of a very visible pricing summit, and I was contributing with my own materials and speaking with many pricing experts and pricing nerds about a pricing topic. So I was a bit anxious about my materials. I had a lot of self-doubt. Do I have the right materials? Do I have the right message? Is this stuff going to be useful for the audience? And there, because I have kind of a list of mentors and people that I can strategically deploy in certain situations who I know would help me out, I reached to one of my academic mentors from when I was doing my MBA, and reached out to that person and told him, hey, I have this conference coming up. I built a presentation. I'd like to get your feedback. And we spent a lot of quality time going through my message, through my story. And that discussion really made the difference between, gaining self-confidence, making sure I have the right materials pulled together, and, help me deliver a much better story because of that relationship. So really think about those individuals in your life, and at which stage you can, pick up the phone, call them and tell them, hey, what do you think about this step? Can you help me achieve this goal? And have that kind of discussion. Without a doubt, it's going to be useful, and it's not something that you will regret. So, with that, some very quick points. What is coaching versus mentoring, right? I think we mentioned this already. You can, read some of the stuff here, but in summary, what I like to say is that a coach has some great questions for you to answer. So they're very tactical. They're very task-oriented, right? So you're tackling a specific problem and you reach out to a coach to help you provide guidance, where a mentor is more someone who has some great answers for you. So they will answer your question, while a coach will ask you questions for you to figure out. A mentor will give you straight answers. They've been down the path before. They will share their knowledge and experience. And it's a more informal relationship. So you could have mentoring relationships with your friends, with your family members, your colleagues. So that would be kind of in a nutshell what a mentor versus a coach is. And again, deploy both, use both, keep them as part of your toolkit in your either job search journey, or you're, climbing the ladder, or whether you're in corporate or you're an entrepreneur. I think you definitely need to have both in your toolkit. So with that, also think in the short term or in the medium term, what's your next career goal, and how can a mentor help you get there, right? And I'd like with that to open it up once again. If someone here has, like an immediate objective or goal, whether it's applying for a job or applying for a different position within your firm, and who do you think would, without saying names, but who do you think would be a mentor or a mentor kind of relationship? But how can you now leverage mentoring or coaching for this next career goal? Someone can give us some examples. I think that would be great. Should we choose names again, or what do you think?
Maybe let's give them a few seconds. Maybe someone will be brave enough to unmute. And again, there is no right or wrong answer here, guys. Or this is just a collaboration and discussion. So if you want to share it, that's great. If not, then
absolutely.
Yeah, I think someone wrote something in the chat. Let me just read.
Yeah, chat works as well.
Okay, I'm thinking of hiring a writing coach online to help me write a book. Not sure if that's a good investment. Okay, that could be. There's book coaches a lot. That they can really help you write, and it's a lot of work. I know someone who can help you if you need Farouk. But let's go back to the question that Khaled posed here about mentorship and how this can help you with your career. I can personally share some stories, but
sure.
I want to see if someone else has. Okay, let me share my story then. Okay, so I experienced this myself, during my time with Alcatel-Lucent back in the days. I had, a friend of mine who was really a great leader, and he moved, to a different company, and we were friends. We were talking, and he was coaching me and mentor me, for a period of time. Then, surprise, surprise, he was at Nokia, and when he moved to Nokia, and then he moved me with him, because there was a big project in Saudi Arabia that I was in that region at that time, and and there was a shortage of project managers and program managers to help with that big program. And then I was introduced by him to the hiring manager, and I was giving some recommendation and references, and that helped me a lot to land a job with Nokia at that time. So definitely, those things happen all the time, and I keep getting some of those too. Like when I was with Cisco as well, I met someone in Cisco Saudi who had a friend in Cisco Canada.
Mm.
Who then when I moved to Canada and I spoke to my friend at Cisco. He told me, I know someone in Cisco Canada, and again, those folks were, in a good relationship with me. We were, coaching each other, we were mentoring each other, we were, supporting each other's journey, and definitely that helped me with my career. Building that presence and support to each other, and get those kind of opportunities that definitely made me land those jobs in my career.
Absolutely. That's a great example. So how kind of the power of relationships comes into play for, whatever career move, whichever level you are at in your career, then that's one other thing where when you have a mentor, it's more of a long-term relationship. And then you could leverage that relationship. It happens organically. It's not even leverage, but I think it happens organically where you start to find these opportunities flourishing without even seeking them, like in your case with the Saudi and the Middle East opportunity. And I think for Farouk's also example with a coach is something where, as I mentioned, it's something that's part of your toolkit. You open your toolbox, you have the mentors, you have coaches, and then you strategically deploy those. Then, depending on, if you're writing a book or finding another career step, then you identify, this person would be a great coach. I can work with him for a certain period of time, whether that's, paid or unpaid, to get something accomplished.
100%. Thanks.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to share before we jump to the next slide about coaches and mentors in your career? The group is shy today. I don't know what's happening. Is it because it's Wednesday or?
Well, maybe winter and we're warming up. So, but that's yeah. If you guys are comfortable writing in the chat, that's fine. Otherwise, but we'll have a few more questions coming up. So if you start to get your questions ready, that would be cool. Okay, let's move along to the next section. Just summarizing benefits of having a mentor. So I think you touched on the first one, Ahmed, right? So building that network, building those relationships, because you never know when those will be deployed strategically to help you with your move. In your case, it was finding a job. Professional relationships, those are long-term in nature. And, I see that in my industry all the time, right? You mentioned a few names. You mentioned Nokia, Alcatel-Lucent, Cisco. And in my industry, we see people moving all around all the time. So at a certain point of time, you're going to know one person working for that company, and you would know who to reach out to for, either mentorship or helping you with that move. So that's, always a key thing. And then access to experience, right? Like we mentioned at the start, a mentor is someone who's gone down that path before. They climbed the mountain. They know, where the ditch is. They know where to, hey, watch out, there's a stone here. Maybe take this path, it's shorter. So access to that kind of experience is going to save you a lot of time. Then accountability, right? And why is that important is you keep yourself honest, right? When you have a mentor, when you're working with someone and you tell them, hey, next year I would really like to be promoted to like a senior engineer, for example. Then you've, kind of mentally and psychologically, and there's research around that, where you are being held accountable in front of one person, but also, looking in the mirror, you feel that accountability, and then subconsciously you start working towards that goal. So, that's one other key benefit, right? You increase your knowledge and confidence. Like in my case, when I had the Chicago Pricing Summit, going into the summit, I was really lacking some of the self-confidence, but after speaking with my mentor and, getting my ducks in the row, self-confidence increased. I definitely increased my awareness and my knowledge. And then, when you talk through these topics with a mentor, you focus on the important tasks. So I think as human beings, it's difficult to think in your own head about a topic, but when you talk out loud with someone, it helps you keep focused, and it helps you really, flesh out the details and kind of, iron out those wrinkles to get to a more focused, more tailored discussion. So those, if you take those to heart, I think those would be very important in your identifying strategically mentors in your career to help you with the next step. Now, closely tied to this topic is power and influence, but maybe before going there, any questions on mentorship, coaching? They are kind of, intertwined with power and influence, but any questions before jumping there?
I think Amr has his hands raised. Go ahead, Amr.
The man, go ahead.
Thank you so much for both of you first for this amazing event. So I have a comment about the mentor and coaching thing, because I believe you don't have to have one in mind. You must have a lot of network and connection of people in advancing your career or in different industries. So you gonna have insights from different perspective, and you know that even people in advanced in the career where you want to go, but each one has a different value and different experience than the others. So you might, like the example you gave for the summit and prepare that presentation, there is someone can help you with this, but there is another one can help you with something more technical, and the other one can help you with something else. So keep your book open, try to keep always connection and networking. So you may have different people to reach out when you need different things. So by time you will learn who to reach out to get the most benefit or the most related advice in that particular area.
Yeah.
In my domain, I always have like different advisor and different mentors in different areas where you have questions where you go to. So
I love it. It's almost like you have a running list of contacts, and in front of all of those contacts, how each person can help you in which domain. Like,
yeah.
This is a contact I can use for a technical topic. This is a contact I can use for, my next career move. It's financial advice. So it's almost like a running list of people, and you don't need to think about it too much. You can, flip it open and I instantly kind of identify, yeah, I'm going to talk to this person.
Exactly.
Love it. Great advice. Thank you, Ahmed.
I think one more thing, maybe Khaled, that I really like about coaching and mentoring, that sometimes we don't really ask ourselves the tough questions, and we try to, find a way to hide from those questions because they are scary. Like, who's going to ask me those questions except my coach and mentor, who will really tell me, this is the question that you need to ask yourself. This is the truth about your situation, and to your point again, sometimes we have those self-doubts, we lose confidence, especially in the job search journey. Sometimes, getting rejections a lot affects our mental health, affects our confidence, and we feel like, oh, we're not succeeding. We have to accept anything, and we just need to go down, maybe, downgrade our profiles, or accept, any job that comes. And this is where coaches and mentors are critical for that aspect, because you as a person, you have a lot of value, you have a lot of skills that can lead to landing the right job for you. But you just need to find someone who can coach you, mentor you, tell you, what you're doing right, what you're not doing right, and put you really in a situation where you're sometimes uncomfortable, but that uncomfortable situation helps you really, understand the next steps.
I like it. It's I think it's keeping yourself accountable, right? And when you talk about your goals and your next steps and even your fears and concerns, you're kind of like looking yourself in the mirror, and then you also keep yourself accountable. And whatever you commit on as part of that dialogue and that discussion, it's more of a mental commitment that you've made. So you will keep yourself honest in terms of achieving your goal. I think there's going to be a much higher probability of success if you speak it out loud. And in some instances, like some research is like you can talk to your spouse or your children or a friend just by saying it out loud. Hey, this is what I intend to do. Subconsciously, I think you keep yourself honest and going down that path.
100%. Thanks, Khaled.
Beautiful. Okay, so is power a good thing or a bad thing? And we're speaking here about power within the corporate world. Why is this important for your career growth? Why is it important even for landing the first job? And power always has a negative connotation or a negative perception. Like I'm pretty sure when the first thing when you see power, you think of someone who's kind of waving their fist in the air, and but there are different types of power, right? And you could use power for good, or you could use power for a bad cause. It could be both ways. So the key point here is how can power be used for good? And there's a lot of research out there on examples of people using power, for example, to start a new cancer research department at a hospital, right? Or someone launching a new product, or a politician debating for a new bill that's going to reduce taxes or improve healthcare. And this is the kind of power that we're talking about. And power is really a skill that you need to learn, you need to practice, and you need to look around you and kind of look at those examples where hey, it could be also the role model figure, like was mentioned. This is someone who has power, who's able to wield that power for the benefit of others. And this is the type of person that I would like to be. My own personal example is I've always looked up to my grandfather as kind of this power figure. He was a very established, had a very long military career, and he always helped people around him, right? And I think that's what it's all about, right? You can use power to be successful in your corporate career, financially, and other things. But at the end of the day, are you benefiting the people around you? And that's kind of the debate made on that side of the table, where power is something good. It's something to run after. It's something to strive for, because if you deploy power for the benefit of others and for doing good, this is the kind of power you should be looking at. So the archetypal kind of power is simply exercising control over others is not the best strategy to get things done. And this is where you have positional power, right? There are different types of power. There could be relational power, positional power, and kind of knowledge power, right? You know things that other people don't know. Where I think we get the negative connotation about power is kind of people who have positional power. They don't really have the intellect. They don't have the knowledge. They don't want to do good. And we know they don't get things done effectively, right? So switching this argument around, it's all about using power to get things done, right? What is it that you need to get done? Do you need to land that next job? Do you need to move to a new position? Or do you have a project or a product that you think is very important that you would like to deploy, right? And look around you at all of the great products that have been deployed, whether it's your iPhone, it's your car, it's a piece of furniture at home. You should be certain that someone with power had to go against the tide and against the stream to get that thing launched. So, what I like to use here is your personal power plan, or, P3, and how you can use that in your career. So
Are
I
you
think,
sharing screen, Khaled? Are you sharing slide or something?
oh, I'm not?
You are not.
Okay,
I don't
well,
see your screen. So.
okay, hold on. Thank you for that. It's a common mistake.
Yeah,
You know
I
what?
see it now.
The nice thing about my slides is you didn't miss too much, right? They were the same things I was mentioning, a couple of words on the screen. So you didn't miss much. And maybe this one, it had a few more text. So, what's your personal power plan? And think about that as you go along in your career. So number one, describe your goals and preferably describe them out loud, right? So if you're speaking to that mentor, if you're speaking to a friend or a colleague, describe what your goals are. What is it that you want to achieve? So a few years back, I felt like I was stuck in my career, kind of reached managerial kind of step, and I wanted to go a bit higher, but I felt there was always a glass ceiling. Like I was unable to move past my position at the company at Nokia. And from there I started writing down my goals, saying, hey, within the next couple of years, I would like to move into a director level position. And then I started, going through what does it mean to be in that kind of position at Nokia. I started speaking to different people, and then I identified, hey, these are the skills that I need to work on. For example, one of the top skills was my communication. So I started really describing my goal. This is what I need to put in place. So step number one, describe what is it that you want to achieve in your career. Then next, describe how are you going to achieve those goals. So in my case, I needed to work on my communication skills. I felt whenever I'm sitting down with an executive, a VP, senior VP at my firm, there is a gap in communication. I'm unable to communicate as clearly, as concise, and I'm unable to articulate my points as this executive is able to. And it made me really frustrated that I'm unable to communicate at that same wavelength. So I started identifying, hey, these are kind of the communication skill gaps that I have, and this is what I need to work on. Then next, kind of identify what are your power deficiencies. And power deficiencies, they could be, for example, what we were mentioning, relationship power, right? You don't know the right people in the right place. And here, what we say sometimes is you need to get with the decision makers in the tent. You need to be with the group that makes the decisions, for example. Or if you're applying for a job, then you need to have relationships in areas, that you can land that job. And I always like to say that finding a job, finding your next career step is 80% networking, 20% the skills and the knowledge you have. So identify those power deficiencies. Do you need to know people in different places that you otherwise don't know and would help you move towards in that direction? And then finally, what power tactics will you use? And we'll talk a bit about those power tactics, but what power tactics will you use to achieve those goals? So by structuring things, identifying, hey, these are my goals. This is how I'm going to achieve them. This is what's missing right now within my skills. And you need to be very honest with yourself. I think there's a lot of self-reflection involved, writing down these kinds of things. And then finally saying, okay, these are the gaps. This is how I will use power tactics, as we mentioned previously, to get things done. So, back to the mentor role model kind of thing. Who do you see in your life, present, past, or even future, who wields power to do good? And this could be a personal example, someone in your life, like in my case, my grandfather, could be someone at work, could be a former boss, could be a colleague. But what examples do you have of these kinds of people who really use power for good and to get things done? Let's open it up once again.
Anyone open to share? Again, there's no right or wrong here. So just share whatever experience that you want to bring to the group here.
Yeah, for sure. Share with us some examples. I think it gives flavor, and it's also, it's a two-way kind of learning path, I think, because I'm pretty sure we're going to benefit as well. But maybe
100%.
yeah. Um,
Yeah, I
it,
think for me, like maybe I'll share my story because folks are shy, so I'll
sure.
give I'll give it a hit here. So again, one of my previous bosses, he was really good in coaching and mentoring, and we became friends. After I left, he was a Cisco, my boss at Cisco, and then he became now I think a VP or something with Cisco. He was from Ireland, and I know I was in the Middle East, and I was headhunted to work for Cisco at the time, and he really coached me very well to help me with my first 30, 60, 90 days in order to succeed in a very complex program, which was called Smart City. Again, it was very hard for me. It was a new experience. I never did such program before, but I was, having the tools in my pocket and the resources and the experience that I used before to help me succeed in that role. But till today we're in a good connection, and sometimes he keeps telling me, why don't you come back to Cisco? Why don't you join us back? And again, those kind of mentors and discussions, definitely keeps me honest and keeps me, aware about, how those relationships can shape my future and career as well.
Yeah, and I know companies like Cisco, the landscape is, and I think it's similar at Nokia as well. The landscape is very, for lack of a better word, political, right? And to get things done, you really need to understand the power dynamic and who is who in the zoo, essentially, right? Who's doing what? Who has the resources? Who has the budget? Who has the money? Who can influence to get things done and to get things moving, right? And like the example you used, Ahmed, I think those are the people that really get things moving, even in a highly politicized or maybe even bureaucratic environment, right? And we'll touch on those examples as well.
I think there is a question in the chat, Khaled, that Farouk has mentioned. Can you see someone at work as coach, even if you don't want their particular job someday? How do we learn from people in parallel job tracks? Actually, this is a great question. I can give an example myself. I wanted to move to product management at some certain point of my career, and I, went to a colleague and I asked them to coach me and mentor me for that role because I didn't really have that experience before, and I shadowed them for a period of time to learn, their tools, techniques, and practices, and that helped me a lot. So again, you can do this in any job. You can move right or left, to your colleagues and maybe get an exposure of what they are doing, how they are doing it, and that will definitely increase your knowledge about the whole business at a certain point. I know, Khaled, maybe you have
Yeah.
some examples you want to share.
Yeah, well, the answer is yes, definitely. You can find a coach at your firm, and I had one example a few years ago where I was applying for another position internally at Nokia, and as part of the interview process, they requested that I come up with a presentation and address a specific problem statement, and just so they can understand my thought process and go through that. So building that presentation, it wasn't a topic I was completely familiar with, but what I did is I reached out to one of my connections and told him, hey, can you guide me and help me to build this package? I'm really keen about getting this job. And can we work on this together? And I worked with this individual. I considered him to be kind of my coach in this project. We were at the same level, right? So he's not senior to me, not junior to me. We're at the same level, but he does have more experience in this area, and he was able to kind of put his coaching hat on and help me deliver that presentation. I didn't get the job, but the presentation was good. Like, we fulfilled the the task.
You definitely learn from the experience. I'm sure about it.
Absolutely.
Samer has his hand raised. Go ahead, Samer.
Thank you, Ahmed. I would like to share something. Probably, it's very funny. Like when you're looking for a coach, you go to the coach with one question and come out with 20 questions. So The coach is not going to answer your question, but he's going to motivate your brain to work harder and harder and harder, and you'll end up with more questions. The moment there is a recognition of missing knowledge, your brain is going to continue learning from everything around it. When you go to a mentor, the mentor kind of a wise man who have a great answers for your question. You might ask the same question to many people, but when you go to the mentor, he will impress you with his answer. So I think looking at these perspectives is going to really change a lot of, and what Khaled is teaching us today is another level in the market, because at some level also people are still mixing between training and coaching. So how about differentiating between coaching and mentorship? Wow, that's amazing. Thank you very much, Khaled.
Absolutely. I like it, Samer, about the coaching. You will come out of a coaching discussion with many more questions to answer, right? It's going to be a thought-provoking discussion. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Well, go research this topic and come back to me. That's ideally the coaching relationship. Absolutely. Good stuff.
Yeah, and again, I guess just one quick example from today. One of my candidates that I'm working with, and she's going to pursue another degree just to help her land a job. And then we started to talk about it and ask her, why are you doing this? And then we, at the end of the discussion, we found out that she doesn't really need that degree. She doesn't really need to invest that money, time, and energy to land a job, because degree is not going to help her land a job. So she decided to drop that and save the money and the effort. So sometimes, again, those kind of discussions are very crucial for someone's career and someone's journey. That, again, regardless of the situation they are, coaches and mentors definitely help a lot.
Absolutely. Okie dokie. And guys, chat works perfectly fine. If so, I see Sadia, you have something in the chat as well. My current job, I have a really good mentor. It's my first job in tech field. My work mentor, I guide me with the skills to be successful in the job. Perfect. Since we do a lot of public speaking, we do practice runs. Yeah, good stuff. Thank you, Sadia. All right, so let's wrap up with a few pointers here. Kind of my 10 ways to apply power effectively. Some of these might sound controversial, but they are all based on real case studies, real people, and again, people who want to get things done for good. So the first one is breaking rules, right? And it might sound counterintuitive. Why would I be breaking rules? Because when you're working at a large firm, for example, at Nokia or some of the firms that you worked for, Ahmed, and the people here on the meeting, often the process works against you, right? So the reason you put a process in place is to move things in a smooth manner to conclusion. But often a process gets outdated. People don't really think about, hey, does this process still really make sense, or should we change things? And sometimes, when it's legal, right, breaking rules make sense to get things done. And this requires, a level of power and self-confidence as well. Relational power, I think we talked about that. I would say this is maybe one of the most potent power dynamics to use. Who do you know? Who is who in the zoo? Who are the decision makers? And making sure, your objective is, if you want to get things done, if you want to get that job, then you are with those people. You're in contact with those people. And there's been research around, they have like a bunch of control subjects, and they let them start to identify their networks from back in school days or from their university days, where they start to randomly call up some of their colleagues to rebuild those connections. And they found this kind of dynamic where you start to rebuild relationships that have been lost over the past 1 or 2 decades was very useful for people either landing their jobs or progressing in their career. Thirdly is breaking into power circles. And this is, I think it's tied to the next point as well about diagnosing power distribution. It's about understanding at your firm where the decisions are made and who holds power in terms of resources. So who controls, for example, a large group of people, who's respected in the organization, right? Who do people look up to and respect versus who's someone, who just has the title like VP, but they're not really getting things done. So diagnosing this is, I think it's a more nuanced approach where you need to start understanding the dynamics in the organization, and kind of then breaking into those power circles. And we'll get to that. How do you break into power circles so you're also part of the decision maker? You also have a table stake. Then, fifth is power and anger. And again, this is, if you read kind of the research and the literature around, there are a bunch of very great books. This is something which really resonated with me personally because, I've done countless personality assessments in the past, so I know myself pretty well, and I am a very agreeable person, right? And one of my colleagues told me, you're the archetypal nice guy, which, progressing and growing in my career, I found that's not necessarily a good thing. Like sometimes it's a good thing, but it's not always a good thing to be the nice guy, right? And this is where, I started changing things a bit where, hey, with self-reflection, maybe I need to be a bit more straightforward in the way I communicate. Maybe I need to have a more assertive style, depending on the situation, right? So if it is a situation at work where I have the knowledge, I understand something very clearly, I understand how we're going to get it done, and people are kind of beating around the bush, I will now adapt my style to the situation and be more straightforward. Hey folks, we've discussed this enough. This is the agenda. This is what we need to do. Let's get things done. So then note taking and reflection, which is more broad, but I think it goes back to, when we discussed goals and decisions. And this is something where you start to identify, are you making the right or wrong decisions? And what do we mean by note taking is when you're about to make a very important decision in your life, write it down. Like write down, hey, for example, I decided to buy a house and I think this is the best investment. So write it down, reflect on that decision, and come back to that decision in 6 or 9 months, right? And see if, hey, was this a good decision or a bad decision? Because those kinds of learnings are invaluable. You're going to be learning, hey, this is my thought process. I made that decision. It was a great decision in hindsight. After, hey, but my house appreciated by like 30%, great decision. I'll probably do more of that. Or maybe it's a bad decision and you say, I should have probably done something else, right? This was a bad investment. Then number 7 here, reciprocity. I love this one. This for me is kind of the easiest one in terms of gaining power, whether finding your first job or growing. And it's all about, human psychology. When I do you a favor, you want to do me a favor, right? So, when I call someone up and tell them, hey, my friend, he's looking for a job, you're probably down the road, you're going to still have that in your subconscious and you're going to want to do me a favor. And that's all of these kind of micro habits at work. Someone's working on a project, they're stuck with something, you go in, you help them out, deliver the project, and they come back and they say, hey, you were very helpful. I see we're running low on time, so I'll wrap up. Then authenticity is, very different from what we read in books, that you should always be authentic, which is good. But in some situations, you should also be adaptable. And I think it has to do, also with what I mentioned in power and anger, which is based on the situation, you could adapt and you could kind of adopt different styles which don't come natural to you. Power deficit, again, I think we mentioned before, but essentially identifying where do you need to have different power dynamics? Where is your power deficit? And then finally, what's your purpose? And I think that ties back to at the very start of our section here, where, using this stuff to do good, which is essentially helping people out. So the key question here is, how can you have power and influence to do good and to help those around you? Is going to be a much more compelling and motivational story to tell yourself to really do things differently and adopt different approaches. With that, we're done. Any questions, comments, or thoughts?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Khaled. This is amazing. Lots of great wisdom. Really appreciate, the discussion and the engagement and the examples. I hope this was useful for everybody here. So again, this is time for selfie. If you're ready to be in camera, we'll be happy to have you uh, join the camera if you can. And we'll take a group selfie. We'll share it on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, and others to promote this call. And then again, if you want to ask a few questions after that, we're happy to to have you and answer your questions. Okay, I'll give it a few seconds more in case anyone wants to join. So I'll say 1, 2, 3, and smile. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and smile. Awesome. Thank you so much, Khaled. Thank you so much,
Beautiful.
everybody, for joining today. Again, great discussion. Um, Again, I'll let Khaled, say final words before we end up here, and if there are any other questions anyone wants to ask.
Yeah, happy to answer any questions. And then if you kind of start to think of those as you go along, feel free to reach out. I'm a very reachable person, especially on LinkedIn. Happy to answer your questions. But I think in closing, a key takeaway is use those. I think, as you mentioned, Ahmed, as well, as part of your toolbox, right? So whether they're the connections, the mentors, the coaches, or when you start to look at your power deficit and how you deploy power to get things done, keep those as part of your toolbox.
Absolutely. Samuel, go ahead.
Yeah, not a question, but a request, please, Mr. Khaled. Can you share your LinkedIn hyperlink, please, on the chat for us? Thank you.
For sure. Absolutely. With pleasure.
Awesome. So again, guys, if you found this useful, the best way to give back is through Coda's recommendation on LinkedIn, if you would like. Again, if you're comfortable doing this, uh, that's definitely a good gesture to give our speaker, Khaled, Coda's and recommendation. That's definitely something that is useful for you also to rise and shine in Khaled's network. Muhammad, go ahead. Muhammad Junaid, if you're speaking, you're mute.
Hey, sorry, my network got off. I had one quick question before leaving, but great speech. By the way, I had a lot of key takeaways. I've gotten referrals from a couple of folks from like big organizations, but it's very hard for me to get selected in the application process. Yet I have like chimed my resume according to the job description, and I have all the relevant experiences. What do you suggest in like acing the application process? Should I like go ahead and reach out to the recruiters in that area, because not many people like being reached out on social media? So what is the effective way that you want to suggest?
Is that for a question for me or Ahmed?
Yeah, I mean, it's for you, and everybody else can share their perspective as well.
If you want to share yours, Khaled, go ahead. Otherwise, I can take that one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So again, Muhammad, sometimes you think you've done the work that is needed for those people to refer you, but you definitely need to build a relationship first. Because again, if you don't build a relationship, it's going to come as cold, and unfortunately, that's something that most people don't wanna put your name beside their name until they really make sure that your name is worth to help you or share as a reference, because again they are going to put the reputation beside your name, and that's definitely a scary thing. So unless you really build a good relationship with those folks and make sure they really understand where you're coming from, and make them like you, make them feel like you're part of their circle, and that's where they can help you. Otherwise, definitely you'll be almost like anyone else who's just asking them for time and effort without really building the relationship. Does that make sense, Mohammed?
Yeah, definitely.
I'll
Thanks for
add
your
I'll add maybe a bit. So I think in this process is very exhaustive and time-consuming and stressful, right? But unfortunately, there is kind of a delay between the actions you take and the results and the outcome. And I like to think of that as kind of like a flywheel, right? You start to build the relationship, you have the discussions, and as the flywheel takes momentum, it starts taking speed, and then it, kind of spins on its own. But, there needs to be a starting point where you build the relationship. Ideally, if there is an opportunity to engage in reciprocity, like I mentioned, so you're doing someone a favor, even if it's a small favor, and you do more of those, then you start to have a more solid relationship building up as you go along. And then when the opportunity comes, and even if you can find different volunteering type things that you can do, or working with the community type of things where you just gain visibility, those are all kind of micro things that you can adopt and can help get that flywheel moving as fast as possible.
Great point. Thank you.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks a lot for your insights.
Pleasure.
Always. Thanks, Mohammed. Okay, I guess that's it for tonight. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us. There is another call Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern, the same link if you want to join us. Definitely, hopefully, again, there will be more questions, more folks joining. Sometimes, Sunday is more easier for people to join than Wednesday. But again, thank you so much. Samer, do you have final thoughts you want to share?
Oh, thank you very much. I'm trying to learn. I learned something from Khaled today, and I'm going to answer the question of Muhammad based on that. So he need a favor from someone, right? That's what I understand from him. He need someone to either recommend him, endorse him, or probably an HR to reply for a job application or something. Let me take my grandmother as a mentor for this stage. And if I go to my grandmother and tell her, like, I need a favor from this person, then she will say, since how long you called him? Call him today, make sure that his family is okay, assure that he's doing well, and then request after 2 days. So kind of the mentor will tell me, build the relationship first and then demand for help or support. And that's exactly what you have taught us today. Thank you very much.
Good point. Thanks, Samer. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the day, and we'll see you again Sunday if you would like to join us. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.